Hi, I wanted to record how Turtle's Back was cracked for you. This is a traditional Cherokee tale. The Cherokee are a tribe of Native Americans, and they told lots of folk tales um, and shared folk tales. And there are many collections of their folk tales that you can read. And one of the reasons why they have so many folk tales that are in writing is because one of their chiefs in the 1800s, his name was Sequoyah, decided to invent a written language for their tribe. Cherokee was a spoken language, they didn't have a written language. And so Sequoyah, when he was chief, came up with a syllabary, which is sort of like a cross between an alphabet and a phonics alphabet. And so he was able to invent a written language for his tribe. And because of that, they were able to write down a lot of their folk tales and save them. Folk tales are passed down often by word of mouth, through over time, through history. And so there are a lot of books of Cherokee folk tales, mainly because they were really good at telling stories, and also because of Sequoyah, they were able to write down their stories. So, and yes, the Sequoyah tree is named after Sequoyah because he was an awesome chief and leader. So this tale is kind of falls under the heading of why something happens tale. So the Cherokee were trying to figure out, why do turtles have such weird patterns on their shells? And so this is a story that answers that question. Many Cherokee tales have coyotes, have wolves in them, possums, lots of animals that lived in Cherokee country, which was located in the eastern part of the southeastern part of the United States. So, without further ado, here we go. This has kind of sticky pages, like the pages are kind of slick and they stick, so be patient with my page turning. All right. This is what the old people told me when I was a child about the days when the people and the animals still spoke the same language. Now, in those days, Possum and Turtle were best friends. Many people thought it odd that two such very different creatures would be so close, but Possum and Turtle knew that they had a lot in common. Neither of them liked to go anywhere in a hurry, and they both loved persimmons. Here is how they shared persimmons together. Possum would climb a persimmon tree, wrap his strong tail around a limb, and hang. Turtle would come and stand at the foot of the tree, and Possum would swing up and pick a persimmon for himself and eat it. Then he would swing up and pick another one, and Turtle would open his mouth as wide as it would go. Possum would take careful aim and drop the persimmon into Turtle's mouth. They could do this for hours. Now, you probably notice in this picture there's a wolf that's watching their process, right? The wolf looks kind of dorky, like, Durr. He's watching what they're doing. He's actually a smart wolf. He's going to come up with a plan. They were sharing persimmons in this way one day when a wolf came along. The wolf watched the two friends for a while, and he saw a way to play what he thought was a pretty funny joke and get a free lunch all the same time. All at the same time. He went and he stood behind Turtle, and when Possum dropped a persimmon, the wolf leapt into the air and snatched it before it could land in Turtle's mouth. When Turtle opened his mouth, he closed his eyes so he did not see the wolf. All he knew was that he saw Possum drop the persimmon, but it didn't land in his mouth. And after he saw many, many persimmons dropped that he did not eat, Turtle began to get angry. So you can see the wolf is a little taller and is getting the persimmon. Turtle's eyes are closed because turtles' eyes close when they eat, especially when they eat fish. Possum up in the tree saw the wolf and realized what was happening. Now, if you have a best friend and you're trying to make a present to him and someone comes along and steals it, it can make you angry. And that's how it was with Possum. He decided to fix that wolf. He looked all around the tree and found the biggest, ripest persimmon he could find. Then, instead of just dropping the persimmon down to Turtle, he threw it with all of the strength he had, and the greedy wolf leapt into the air with his mouth wide open. The persimmon flew down his throat and stuck there, and he choked to death. Possum thought no more about it. He went back to eating persimmons. When Turtle opened his eyes and saw the dead wolf, he realized where his persimmons had gone, and the more he thought about how the wolf had stolen his food, the angrier he became. He began to scold the wolf, saying, "You were a very greedy wolf. You got what you deserved." Then he said, "Possum and I sure showed you. You won't be stealing any more persimmons." And then, "That was a very brave thing for me to do." And finally, he convinced himself that he alone, Turtle the mighty hunter, had slain the greedy wolf. So there's the wolf's making the has the choking hand on his throat. All right. Now, it is a custom for a hunter to take what is called a tribute from an animal he has killed. In this way, he captures a piece of the animal's spirit which belongs to him. Turtle decided that he had the right to take a tribute from the dead wolf, so he cut off the wolf's ears. He took them home and fixed them onto two long wooden sticks and made wolf ear spoons. In the old days, it was another custom to offer a visitor food to eat the very first thing, and there was a special dish that was usually kept cooking at all times, just to offer a guest. This was a kind of thick corn soup. Turtle took his wolf ear spoons and went visiting. So in their village, you could go. You can see that he has the wolf ear spoons tied around his waist. They're underneath his belt. So in their village, when you visited people, you would get a snack when you went to their house. So now he's going to go from house to house to house. First, Turtle visited all of his friends. Then he began visiting people he had met once or twice. And then he began to visit people he had not even been introduced to, just so that they could offer him a bowl of corn soup, and he could pull out his wolf ear spoons and eat with them. Pretty soon, everyone was talking about what a mighty hunter Turtle must be if he ate corn soup with wolf-eared spoons. So he's kind of bragging, and guess who's going to hear about his bragging about killing the wolf? All the other wolves are going to hear about what he's been saying. It wasn't long before word got back to the rest of the wolves, and they were angry. This was a terrible insult for such an insignificant creature as Turtle to be eating corn soup with wolf ear spoons. The wolves decided Turtle must die. Now, wolves are faster than turtles, and they had no trouble catching Turtle. But then, in the manner of wolves everywhere, they began to argue over what to do with him. Turtle listened and decided that the only thing he could do would be to keep his wits about him and be ready for any chance he saw. So here's the picture of them capturing him. Finally, one wolf said, "I know what we'll do with you, Turtle. We'll build a roaring fire, throw you in it, and burn you alive." Turtle thought very quickly and said, "Oh, please do. I'd love it. You see these big strong feet? I could stamp out every spark of your fire before I even got warm." So he's using a little bit of reverse psychology, isn't he? Do you think he could really stamp out the fire with his feet? Probably not. It would burn him. So he's lying to them and saying, "I'm just going to stamp out your fire." Well, the wolves didn't like that, and so they argued some more. Finally, one of the wolves said, "I have an idea, Turtle. We'll build that roaring fire. We'll put a clay pot of water on the fire, throw you in, boil you, and make turtle soup. So he's thinking and he's like, I'm going to use some reverse psychology again. Turtle thought very quickly and he said, "Oh, please do. I'd love it. You see these big strong feet? I could stamp your pot to pieces before the water would even get warm." So there they are getting the pot ready and they're carrying him over to dump him in. The wolves didn't like that either. They argued, and finally one wolf said, "Well then, Turtle, I know what we'll do with you. We'll carry you down to the deepest part of the river and throw you in. We'll stand on the bank and watch you drown." And Turtle thought very quickly and said, "Oh no, not the river. Anything but the river." Well, as soon as the wolves heard that, of course they carried Turtle down to the riverbank. So he's thinking, they're just going to throw me in the river and I'll swim away and I'll be fine. Right? So he tells them, "Oh no, don't throw me in the river. That would be the best way to kill me." They threw him into the water as hard as they could, which should have been fine. Turtles live in the river, but Turtle didn't land in the water the way he thought he would. The wolves threw him so hard he went spinning end over end as he fell, and he landed on his back on a rock in the middle of the river and he bounced into the water. Looks like a sharp rock, too. As Turtle swam to the other side of the river, he could feel his back shifting and moving. When he crawled out of the water and looked over at his shoulder, he saw that his beautiful shiny shell had been cracked into a dozen pieces. So you can see how his back has the shapes on it that turtles have. Now, Turtle wasn't a mighty hunter, but he was a very good doctor. He knew many conjuring secrets. He knew the healing plants and how to prepare them. When he had gathered all the plants he needed, he went about the business of doctoring himself. Here comes some Cherokee language. Let's see if I pronounce it correctly. So it has some, I'll show you when I'm done reading. It has a Cherokee phrase and then it also has a pronunciation guide so that you can say it correctly, hopefully. When he had gathered all the plants he needed, he went about the business of doctoring himself, singing, "Gunde Yawan, Gunde Yawan, I have sewn myself together, I have sewn myself together." And over the time that has passed from that day to this, Turtle's shell has grown strong again. But if you look closely, you can still see the lines where Turtle's back was cracked. And you will never see another turtle eating corn soup from wolf ear spoons. So there he is. There's his back with the pattern on it. And right here, I think my finger is not going to go far enough over here. Can you guys see the Cherokee? So this is what it looks like. It looks a lot like English, right? Like the alphabet that we use, the alphabet, the traditional alphabet we use. But then it's pronounced Gunda Ya One. Gunda Ya One. I have sewn myself together. This is an afterword. It's at the end of the book. And it tells a little bit of history of the Cherokee. And so I'm going to share that with you because I think it's really interesting. For over 400 years, we have been known as the Cherokee, though the word is of foreign origin. In our own language, we are Aniuwia. Aniuwia. That means the real people. Once the largest and most powerful of the southeastern tribes, the Cherokee lived in harmony with their world in the mountains now called the Smokies. Their powerful matrilineal clan system was balanced by a strong hunter-warrior tradition. In the 1800s, they were perhaps the most famous of all the American Indian nations. They were known for their efforts to live in peace with their white neighbors. So one of the things they did is when settlers moved onto their land, they let the settlers stay. And sometimes they intermarried, their tribe intermarried with the settlers. And so they became friends. They were known as being really friendly and sharing. They shared what they had and they interconnected with the settlers. But still, they had really nice land. And so a lot of the settlers wanted them out of there so that they could take their land. They were known for their efforts to live in peace with their white neighbors. The Cherokee had adopted a written constitution. The Cherokee genius Sequoyah had developed a syllabary, making it possible for the people to read and write in the native language. A newspaper printed in English and Cherokee was begun. But these great accomplishments did not protect the Cherokee from the Holocaust known as Indian removal. President Andrew Jackson's policy of forcing the southeastern tribes from their homes to lands west of the Mississippi. Over 4,000 Cherokee people lost their lives on the forced march to the west in the winter of 1838 1839. The long walk came to be known as the Trail of Tears. So the president declared that the Cherokee had to leave their land and they had to go to Oklahoma. And the way they did that was soldiers marched them. They had to walk. That's walking almost halfway across the country from North and South Carolina all the way to Oklahoma. And 4,000 people died um, because it was cold, and probably a lot of them were barefoot and um, didn't have the right clothes maybe for living there. So, or for traveling across the country through snow. If they were used to living in warmer areas, that would probably be a problem for them. So, you can now, the Trail of Tears still exists. You can follow their trail that they marched on, and there are lots of people, there are lots of Cherokee people that are buried by the side of the trail. It's kind of a sacred spot because a lot of people died while they were walking to Oklahoma and they were buried right near the trail. Today, the Cherokee people make up the second largest Indian nation in the United States, with a national capital in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. The Cherokee language is spoken and taught widely, and the traditional dances, such as stomp dances, are still held. We will listen to some Cherokee music a little bit later on in the year, and you'll learn a little bit more about the Cherokee because they played a really important role in United States history. So you'll learn more about them in fifth grade. We focus mainly on California, but this year in fourth grade, but you'll learn more about them in fifth grade. Um, so anyhow, I hope you enjoyed that story. Um, it was fun having Snorkel come to class. She was happy to be off camera and head back to her big tub of water that has rocks in it. And um, she kind of is not a big fan of being held, so she was patient while I held her on the camera so you guys could see her. Anyhow, thank you for letting me share that with you, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Talk to you later.